This is Join Us in France, episode 483. 483. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we take a conversational journey through the beauty, culture, and flavors of France. Today, I bring you a conversation with Patria Perry and an update on the Paris 2024 Olympics and what you can do to be prepared for summer in Paris, whether or not you'll be attending Olympic events. We discuss transportation, such as metro, bikes, etc., and security, lodging, weather, and strikes, which are always a possibility in France. Will you get anything out of this episode if you're not going to be in Paris in July or August or September, early September 2024? Perhaps not. On the other hand, if you've never listened to this podcast and went searching for information about what to expect in Paris during the 2024 Olympics, you're in the right place and welcome to you. We hope you stick around. This podcast is supported by donors and listeners who buy my tours and services, including my itinerary consult service, my GPS self-guided tours of Paris on the Voice Map app, or take a day trip with me around the southwest of France in my electric car. You can browse all of that at my boutique, joinusinfrance.com/boutique. And I gotta say, the GPS self-guided tours of Paris on the Voice Map app are going to be very handy-dandy for Paris, for people who are visiting Paris for the first time for the Olympics. For the magazine part of the podcast, after my chat with Patria, I'll discuss the Navigo Pass during the Olympics and the prices of tickets, because it will not be business as usual. Bonjour, Patria, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie. Happy to be there. Hello from Paris.
Yes. You are talking to me in Paris, and I'm talking to you from Spain.
You're the foreigner now.
Yes, very soon we'll be together in your apartment, so that'll be fun. At any rate, we are discussing the Paris Olympic Games and kind of strategies to keep your sanity during the Olympic Games. Tell us why this is something you care about, Patria.
Well, actually, I'm going to be one of the official volunteers, and I've actually been assigned to a transportation venue. I don't know anything about it yet because they haven't told us anything except that you've been selected and kind of what team you're on. So I'm hoping they'll have a lot more information before we are on the ground trying to do something. And my family is coming. So I have a lot of my family here too. And, I would like to make it easier for them and friends coming. So it's like, need to figure this stuff out ahead of time.
All right. So what do you think is going to be the best way to handle a visit to Paris during the Olympics?
Well, probably the first thing is like, where are you staying? And if you can possibly stay anywhere reasonably close to the venue or venues that you have tickets for, that is the very optimal situation, because the ideal way to get to the venue is to walk, because I can guarantee you that the metro, the buses, the trams will be very crowded and there will be problems.
Right.
It's crowded now. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like during the Olympics.
So yes, they've announced that they're adding, service, but there's only so much that you can add.
I mean, the metro trains right now, the busy lines, they come every 3 minutes. You can't get any closer than that, without having safety problems. And buses are subject to surface gridlock, which, they're going to try and control, and add some more buses, have some buses to dedicated venues. They have bus lanes today, but I don't see that they're that effective. The buses still don't move that fast. The other things that you can do are, there's maybe bikes available. There's the Paris Vélib system, which it's good, but it's limited. And if you had never used it before, you're going to struggle at first to use it. It's not very intuitive, but it does work, and it's probably the cheapest. And then there's a lot of floating bike pools also, like Lime and Move and Tier and Dot. Those are all electric bikes. So you're probably going to have to sign up for those ahead of time, and you'll be charged initiation fee and some travel fee on those. But the problem with a lot of this stuff, like especially with relief, is like everybody's going to be going to these limited number of venues. So all the bikes are going to end up there. Whereas in the normal flow, they kind of circulate around town more normally.
Exactly.
So it's not the normal traffic pattern for all these little rental things.
Right. Because the whole idea with a Vélib is that you drop it off at a station.
Yes, you have to lock it up.
Yes, you have to find a place where you can lock it up in a station. And if all the stations are busy, which why wouldn't they be if there's an event going on? Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
They say they're adding 10,000 more bike racks. They didn't say they leave spaces, at busy venues like the Stade de France and the Eiffel Tower. So we'll see if that helps them. And the other option, we used to have the little e-scooters, the little tiny two-wheelers. They've been banished from Paris. So they are no longer an option if people were thinking they would be able to do that. They are gone. Although you might be able to rent one from a store, but not from the sort of the general floating pool of things.
So the ones that have been banned are the rentals of these scooters. Individuals can still have a scooter.
Yes.
And ride a scooter, but if you're Lime or whatever, you can't rent scooters in Paris. You have to just do electric bikes.
And then once again, you're not going to be able to take them into the venue, and there's not going to be a lot of places to lock them up. So when you get there, you have a problem.
Yeah. Yes. I really think you were right on at the beginning when you said the best solution is to walk, because at least you have nothing to park.
Yeah,
there will be people on the sidewalks as well,
yes.
But I think that's the most viable solution. So use Google Maps to ascertain how far it is to walk for you and get walking.
Yeah. Wear comfortable walking shoes, have your sun hat, sunglasses, and water. But people should realize that Paris is actually a very compact city. The central Paris area is only 10 kilometers in diameter or 6 miles. So some of the venues are actually very centrally located. A number of them are just on the periphery. So it's much, much smaller than London or, a lot of other places. If you've been to the Olympics and other places, it'll be different because Paris is very small and compact and dense.
Yes, very dense. Yeah, plan on walking, give it plenty of time. As you walk, it is likely that you will run into some security.
Yeah, they're setting up security zones around all the venues and also some areas that are like along the center or areas that are near to the venues. And the security plan has not been released yet, but in theory, it's going to be some code you'll have on your phone that you'll have to show to a security person to get into that zone, or you have to have a ticket, or you are an emergency worker or police or athlete or something like that.
Right.
A lot of people are not real happy about that. And they're going to be they've installed cameras and they're going to be using drones to monitor people. And of course, the protest against that started a long time ago with artificial intelligence to try and identify issues that require security attention.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. So in France, we had a system like this for the COVID situation where we were all told, install this app and you create an account and you identify yourself in this app. And then the app makes a QR code that lets security people, during COVID, it was at the entrance of venues or even grocery stores, the big grocery stores.
Yeah.
You had to show your QR code to enter the grocery store because it showed that you had been vaccinated. Thank goodness this didn't go on for very long, but I think they're going to use a similar system because that was pretty fast. You could have a few security people at the door, and you're warned as you approach, get your QR code ready. And it goes pretty fast. They don't have to check it against your ID, see if you have your ticket. All of that is done in the app before you ever show up. So perhaps that's what they'll do. That would be my guess. That's
and like I say,
they haven't told us.
They haven't told us any of this. The transportation plan, the security plan, none of this has been publicized yet. We hear little bits and pieces. Okay, this is a theory of what it's going to look like, but the actual parts and pieces of how it's going to work have yet to be known to the public. So
Right. But if you are visiting Paris and not going to Olympic venues, if you're visiting just because you want to be visiting, it's going to create some complications for you because there are places where they will just turn you away. There's going to be streets where they say, nope, this is a secured area. Only people who have tickets can enter this area.
And some metro stations will be closed for security purposes. Like, for example, Place Concorde is a venue. So they're going to close the Concorde station, which is a very central metro station, you know.
Yeah. And they always do this in France. Wherever there are big events, they usually close 1 or 2 or 3 metro stations closest to that event, forcing people to walk. For some reason, it's better for security. I'm not a security professional. I don't know, but they do this for all sorts of events in France. So I'm sure they'll do that as well for the Olympics.
And, you know, what I would recommend for people who want to try and use the metro or a bus or the tramway is to definitely load one of the 2 apps, either Bonjour, RATP, which is the French app from the RATP service, which you can get in English, or City Mapper. And from both of those, you can get, well, if you have a data internet connection, you can get alerts of things that are going on. I sent Annie a link about Stay Informed or something like that from the French government that's going to have these things also. But it looked a lot more cumbersome, and I didn't see any English or any other language version.
Not yet.
I would rely on the Bonjour, RATP, or City Mapper because they're really good about giving you alerts like, you know. I mean, and right now what happens a lot of times, somebody will leave a package on, you know, Metro Line 14. So the flow will be slowed down. And you'll see that on the line and on the app. So you'll know, okay, that's why it's being delayed or whatever.
Yeah, the apps are going to be essential. You can't really rely on the announcements that are going to be made over the speakers because... That's how it works. Even if you speak perfect French, you're like, not sure what that was. So have an app that gives you live reports on what's happening in real time because any other way is going to be just insane. So you need data. I always recommend people have a data plan when they visit France anyway. But during the Olympics, I think it's necessary. You're not going to get around without, you know, you can't pull out your paper tickets and, you know, and also you avoid a lot of issues because if you have your metro tickets on your app, you know, people always run into problems where like they say, oh, I lost my ticket or I can't exit because of this or that. If it's on your app, I mean, hopefully you're not going to lose your phone. Don't lose your phone.
Watch out for the pickpockets.
Big zipped pockets. Yes.
Yeah, on the metro, they're going to be plentiful. They're going to have a large population to work. So.
Yes. They're going to have a lot of targets. Don't be the easy one. Just make it as difficult as you can. Zipping things up is usually sufficient. Not waving your phone around, like, you know, have earbuds, have your phone talk to you. Like, all the mapping systems can be audio. You can set them, you know, tell me. And then your phone is put away and it's telling you where to go instead of having to look at your phone. Because when you look at your phone, you might get hit by a bike. You might trip on something. Just keep it simple. Learn how to make the best use of your phone. That is my recommendation.
And you can use your phone to buy, you know, tickets for the metro. Although I would recommend that you go ahead and get one of the 2 cards that I would recommend for this. Like there's something called the Easy Pass. It costs €2 and then you can load it with tickets.
Navigo Easy, right?
Navigo Easy. The only limitation on it is it will only take you within proper city Paris. Some of the venues like La Défense outside of Paris, you can get on the metro, but when you try and exit, you'll be locked because it's outside of Zone 1 and 2, which are considered central Paris.
Yeah, I wonder how if they're going to
That's going to be a zoo. They need to change it. You know, they really do.
Yeah, they just need to, during the Olympics, make it all one zone.
If you're going to Versailles, you know, that's like Zone 3.
Yeah. Well, but again, the apps are your friends. So learn how to use the apps if you can. because the app will hopefully warn you that you are going outside the zone, but they might simplify it. It would be nice if they simplified a few things, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. I've seen a lot of people get trapped.
Yeah, people will get trapped. Okay, another thing that's really important is that if you're in Paris, in the metro, in the bus, do not put your feet on the seats. You will get fined if you get caught.
Mm-hmm.
The end. There's, people are like, oh, but I was so tired and the seats are gross anyway. Like, no, you will get fined. So don't do it. This is important. Also, if it says that this is a one-way, so if you have a sens interdit, how do you say that in English?
One way.
One way, yes. So if you have a one-way thing in one of the tunnels of the metro, don't take it. Because if you do, you might get fined. Okay, you're supposed to follow the flow of traffic.
If you get lost, that's one thing, but, pay attention to the sign. That's the signage within the metro system is really pretty good, but you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. So I think we covered the transportation pretty well.
I was going to talk about if you want to take a taxi or Uber, the Uber application does work here. And for taxis, I use G7. Once again, I think they're going to be in the surface gridlock program. So you may not get there any faster, although you may be able to sit down for a long time if that's what you want to do. I don't think it's going to be a good option.
And taxis can use the bus lanes, Ubers cannot. Are they going to change that for the Olympics? I know not. They might not. They will restrict a lot of, they don't want the locals using their cars. So they are going to restrict the périphérique, which is the belt route, to one lane of traffic for regular people. So there will be a lane for buses and taxis and things, and another one for VIPs. And there's going to be perhaps another one for emergency vehicles or, but there's going to be heavy restrictions and heavy enforcement discouraging locals from using their cars during the Olympics. But some people will anyway.
Oh, and just thinking back on the bike program, Paris is in the process of adding a significant number of more bike lanes, specifically to the Olympic venues, once again, to encourage people to use bikes. Although I will say in Paris, a bike lane could just be like a piece of little paint on the street.
Yes.
It doesn't make you feel really nice and cozy and safe, but that's what it is. And in the worst case, they take a one-way street. They paint a little lane going the opposite direction that's supposedly for bikes. And I will never take those.
Yeah, those are a bit, it can be hairy. I mean, if you're used to riding a bike.
Busy traffic,
Yeah, perhaps it's okay. But I only ever ride my bike in my country town. And I don't want to ride. I mean, I did ride a bike a little bit in Paris, but...
you have to really pay attention.
Yeah. It's doable. We didn't mention this, but there are also some private bike shops that do rentals. If you arrange a private bike rental ahead of time, that might be a good way to go. But you have to arrange it ahead of time, because I doubt you'll be the only one wanting to rent a bike.
I remember in Paris, there are some bike racks, but you can't easily take bikes. The elevators are not designed for you to take bike up the stairs to your apartment or to your hotel. So it'll be on the street. And if it's a nice bike, things will get ripped off.
Yes. Bikes get stolen all the time. Paris is infamous for this.
One more thing on the metro. Although I haven't seen it and I'm pretty much a metro rat, they're supposedly testing out these interpretation, translation devices to give them to the metro workers to communicate better with people that don't speak French. So I think this is going to be an interesting failure, but I can't wait to see one and play with the guys.
An interesting failure. You're an optimist.
Well, it's going to be fun. I want to find somebody who has one and play with them.
Yeah. So see if you can do, English to Japanese or French to Japanese and see if they understand anything you say. That would be fun.
Yeah. Annie and I say, get your apps and data, and that'll save you as much as anything will. So.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I was going to talk about lodging, your Airbnb, your private stuff. Hotels, they're seeing a big tax increase. But anyway, a lot of people think they can rent their personal apartment and make a killing during the Olympics. Mm-hmm. But to do this, here are the rules. You have to register with the city of Paris. get a registration number. You have to provide this registration number when you rent it. You have to be the owner of the apartment. Or if you are a renter, you have to get the landlord's specific written permission. And you cannot charge anybody who's coming there more than you normally pay in rent. So what's the point?
Yeah, nobody's going to do it like on the up and up. When people do it, they're going to do it however they want.
If you don't do this, the individual's in theory subject to a 75,000 euro fine and or 5 years in prison.
Oh, okay.
But the issue is they really haven't anybody to enforce all this stuff. So.
No, I doubt they will enforce any of it, honestly.
Yeah. And we'll talk about air conditioning too. Now, most of the nicer hotels will have air conditioning, but be sure you ask because it's not always true at the smaller hotels. And most private residences in Paris do not have air conditioning. They might have a portable unit you can pull into a bedroom, that cools somewhat, but over 90% of residences do not have air conditioning in Paris. So we'll talk about the weather.
Well, that's a big one because in August, late July, early August, it is possible to have very, very hot weather in Paris.
It is. Just thinking about that, they built the Olympic Village purposefully without air conditioning to remain ecologically sensitive. And I think the record in July is, something like 104 degrees centigrade. Fahrenheit, like 42 centigrade. And the design of the Olympic Village is such that they should be 6 degrees centigrade cooler than the outside temperature. But if it's 42 degrees outside, 6 degrees cooler does not get you very far in terms of comfort. Yeah. So now there's, riffraff going around like, they're all going to bring in their portable air conditioners and, so it remains to be seen how that's going to work out.
So yes, they went for a geothermal solution that's better than nothing.
And shades and blinds and ventilation.
But it is not super comfortable by American standards, let's put it that way. For French people, I think it'll be fine. For many Europeans who are not used to air conditioning, I think it'll be fine. But for Americans who are used to air conditioning and are used to needing to put on a jacket as soon as you're indoors because it's so freaking cold inside when it's boiling outside, they are not going to like this. They are going to think this is not okay. And I'd be one of them. I mean, honestly, I'm French, but I have had AC at home.
We live in the South. Yeah, also.
Yeah, I live in the South. I have an apartment in Spain. I'm sorry, I am not boiling every summer because it's every single summer for several weeks, that you're dying.
Yeah, it was very hot last summer. I mean, it wasn't 42, but it was, 38, 39. Not pleasant. Yeah. So bring your summer clothes like a hat, your sunglasses, water, maybe spritz yourself. Do not expect to find ice in Paris. If you ask for a drink with ice, you get 1 or 2 little ice cubes and that's normal. They don't have big ice machines.
So I heard an interview with the person, the ice maker, who is in charge for the athletes.
Okay.
And he is a French guy who has been briefed about the fact that Americans like a lot of ice. Mm-hmm. And he was sounding like he was going to try.
The only place I know where you can get a lot of ice, I think, is the McDonald's. I think you can get a lot of ice in the drinks here. I don't go there, so I can't.
They have ice machines. Most French restaurants will have a few ice trays in their freezer.
And stuff like iced coffee and iced tea, it comes in a can, and it's just a refrigerator temperature.
That's true. It comes out of the fridge, but it's not iced. It's cooled.
Unless you're at a coffee specialty shop, you are not going to find iced coffee or iced tea. Doesn't exist. So just reset your standards, what you're going to chill out with.
But you will eat very well in Paris. I'm sure the restaurants are going to be very busy, but
absolutely,
you will probably eat well. If you are absolutely bent over, I should say, it's hell bent, isn't it? Maybe that's not a good expression.
To have ice, hell bent for ice.
Yeah, no, for a specific restaurant.
Oh, reserve. Yeah.
Right. I do itineraries with people every day. And I know some people just get obsessed with, they must have a reservation for every night of the week. And if you're like that, reserve ahead of time. Well ahead of time.
Yeah.
As soon as they will take your reservation, really, which will depend on the restaurant. So that's some research that you're going to have to do, or go back to that restaurant. There are 2 apps you can use in Paris to reserve restaurants. La Fourchette or The Fork is one, or Zen app is another one for the little better restaurants, typically.
Yeah. So, if you want to go to a certain place during the Olympics, you better reserve as soon as you can.
Yes. But for people who don't care, you will find food. There's restaurants everywhere in Paris. It's really not difficult to eat. And most of them will serve extended hours compared to the rest of France. I mean, in the south of France, it's 1:30 p.m. and the chef is going home and you haven't eaten yet. Well, too bad, so sad. But in Paris, you can show up till 2:30, 3:30. Nobody's going to bat an eye. They will feed you probably.
Yeah. I think, the places right around the Olympics will probably be a little bit smashed and overcrowded. And I don't really know what they're going to serve for food in the venues. That's another thing I haven't heard about. They got to feed the people something.
Escargot. That would be funny.
Get your little fork and
frog's legs. That would be funny. I have no idea what they're going to serve, but something. They'll find something. Yeah, they'll find something.
Oh, just back on security, I read about they're testing this new national emergency alert system, but they're testing it here in Paris. It's also over mobile phones, and you get this, beep, beep, beep over your phone when they're I'm supposed to get one this week. They're testing it the 15th of Rodney Small, where I live. They just started testing this thing. So I'm sure this is associated with the Olympics too. If they have a security event or something like that, they can send out this alert. And it's not an app you load on your phone. You just get it if you're in the geographical area. I'll be interested to see how it works. I'll know later this week. Did it work and does it work on anybody's phone or I don't know.
Yeah. You have to be a resident of this area to get the...
Yeah. Like we all need more notifications on our phone.
Yeah, that's what we need. All right. So lodging, we mentioned prices that are going to be high. I think the average price is not... you're not going to find anything under $1,000 a night, I don't think, if you haven't booked it already.
But pay the premium to be close to where you're going. So if you want to pay a premium,
exactly,
not for, the nice sheets or that kind of, pay it for location.
Yes. And I don't know how much is still available as far as lodgings for Paris. I know I'm going to the Paralympics and I've already reserved my little studio because I don't want to, be messing with that as we get closer. So I think if you haven't reserved, you need to get on with it immediately.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about money a little bit? You have something about Visa, MasterCard with touch?
Yeah, definitely.
You need to have a contactless card. And if you don't use Apple Pay or Google Pay,
on your
try
phone,
it.
On your phone or on a watch.
On your watch. Try it at home, and it works exactly the same in France. This avoids the need for a PIN. So, because there's an extra layer of security on your phone, you have to log into your phone with your face or with your thumb or something. And so they trust transactions that come from a phone or a watch better than they do just somebody that has a physical card. Just try it at home. It's really not rocket science, and it works very, very well. Start doing your payments contactless with your phone or your smartwatch.
Yeah, and pretty much in Paris, everybody takes, contactless payment. A few places will say a minimum of €5, but more and more, they don't care. Yeah. They don't want to deal with the money themselves, and you could use it. Tiny shops, big places. Yeah, it's the way to go.
Let's talk about the opening ceremony.
Yeah, it's something influx also. It was originally scheduled to have 600,000 spectators. They sold 100,000 ticketed seats, that are down along the bridges and the lower levels of the Seine. And then there were supposed to be, all these additional spaces for the little people up above, like me. And now they've reduced the attendance numbers from 600,000 to 300,000 for security reasons. And I keep asking about these 200,000 quotes, ticket for a free place. And everybody says, we don't have any information yet. It will be released eventually.
Yeah. And when they are released, they'll be gone in half a second.
Exactly. That's why I want to tell me, when are you going to talk about releasing these tickets? No info on that. But it really, really cool. And I think this is a really big benefit to Paris. They're going to have some event, they'll have this opening ceremony in the sun. And the guy who's doing the design, Tommy something. He's the guy that, anyway, he's a theatrical lighting designer. And there's going to be lasers and holograms and floating things. It's going to be fantastic.
They're probably going to have drone light shows.
Yeah, probably. He has no opportunity to rehearse this ever before. Can you imagine the kind of stress he's under to get this right? Oh, the name of the guy is Thomas Jolly. He did the Starmania stuff, and so he's done a lot of theatrical things.
Oh, I love Starmania. I'm going to try and get tickets. When I'm in Paris, I would love to take you.
It's gone. Sorry. Anyway, but big cry. They're going to have 80 giant screens, so outdoors for people to watch the opening ceremonies, and I think they're going to have that for a lot of things. Like at each arrondissement, have a venue where they have big screen, and
this is huge in France. There are fan zones. They want people to be able to participate without spending a fortune. Yeah. So there will be screens. There will be areas that you can go to see things. Perhaps not the banks of the river, because that's going to be limited access, but there will be places where you can go. And I think that's
have a good time.
Thing.
Yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
And in those fan zones, you always have the people who are loud and drunk, but for the most part, it's happy-go-lucky. It's fun.
And the other thing about the sun, is besides being opening ceremony, they're really cleaning it up. It should be swimmable. They're going to have the swimming part of the marathon, which is 10 kilometers in the sun. And they're continuously monitoring the bacterial count these days. I actually went to the sewer tour, and I could see where they were monitoring stuff, and it's really cool. They're just finishing. They're not quite done yet putting in this, what is it? It's a 50,000 meter cubed reservoir near the Austerlitz train station, which will be, when there's a lot of rain, what happens is it's too much for the sewage system. So some of the sewage, gets into that overflow system. So rather than going directly into the sun, as it has been doing, it will go into this giant reservoir. And then in addition to the reservoir, they have a treatment facility there. So it'll be held in the reservoir and treated and then put back in the sun.
Very cool. Very cool.
Big, big benefit, I think, for everybody.
And this will keep on being a benefit forever. This is something that not that long ago, in the 1800s, people swam in the Seine. It was normal.
There's pictures. There's actually a couple of pools that are in the Seine right now. Though Josephine Baker Pool actually takes water from the Seine and filters it and uses it for the swimming pool there. And then there's a barge near me that uses, cooling and stuff from the Seine. So there's a lot of possibilities.
Very nice. And also we should mention that the bouquinistes are not going to have to move after all.
They weren't going to anyway.
Tempest in a teapot. But yes, I just felt like, look, if they have to move, they have to move. All these businesses look a little shady to me. I know they are, romantic and lovely and very Paris and all of that.
Well, here's the latest thing I heard. They're asking you, of course, not to go to work, if you live in Paris, just hunker down at home and not have any packages delivered.
Oh,
good luck with that one, boys and girls.
Yeah. So no more Amazon for you.
No more Amazon in Paris. No. And Annie, I will let you comment on this one. Of course, this is, strikes, both from the police and the Metro RATP workers. They're both already threatening to strike. This would be total chaos.
So there is something that you have to do when you are going to strike. You have to announce that you intend to strike. And that's called a préavis de grève, which means an announcement of a strike. Well, what do you know? The RATP has already announced that a préavis de grève between it was February 5th or something, and way after the end of the Olympics. Yes. This means that from one day to the next, they could strike without any further ado. And so this last weekend, there was a strike of the SNCF. And I should remind you that, in my opinion, it's always the same people that strike. The SNCF and the RATP, and they have some of the most protected jobs in the country, but they are always on strike because every time they strike, they get a check at the end. And this is the worst way to imagine if your kid was misbehaving and to punish them, you'd give them a good talking to, but to get them to stop doing whatever they were doing, you give them a nice, I don't know, whatever they want. Do you think that would work? Doesn't work with dogs. I know that for sure. If the dog does something bad, you do not give him a reward. This is not the time. Anyway. And so, in my opinion, every time they strike, they get a reward at the end because they get a check. So they stop striking. Okay. So this whole situation is terrible. And it is right written in the French Constitution. I'm not saying that we should not have the right to strike. That would be awful. But what they need to do is do a time and place kind of thing. And they are actually talking about it. And I think there's a centrist parliamentarian that has presented a text, a law, because in France, it's either the Senate, the parliament, or the president that can propose a law. And because it wasn't the president that presented this law, it has a bit of a chance. And this is a law that would actually force them to not strike between specific dates. So like stop striking every time there's a school vacation. Stop striking every time there's a big event. That sort of thing. The rest of the time you can strike.
Yeah. And I'll let you comment on this too, but those 2 months, July and August, when the Olympics are the traditional vacation time for most French people and many Europeans. And, like most of the times Paris looks like a nuclear war zone, in August, in residential neighborhoods where I live, where is everybody? Things will be closed. You'll call someplace. Nobody will answer,
Yeah. It's very dead.
Don't have a plumbing emergency during that time period.
Right. So it's very dead compared to the rest of the year. But it's still plenty happening.
But it's a lot of people be on vacation. So just remember that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I haven't asked my family members, but none of them work in service jobs. And I think they just plan on going on with their lives, like take a vacation like normal, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and the last thing, people may wonder what the hell this Olympic mascot is that looks really weird and I think is very strange looking for anybody who's not French. And it's this kind of a red-looking triangle, which is actually a hat called a Thuringe or something like that.
A bonnet phrygien.
Oh, okay. Bonnet phrygien.
Phrygien, des Phrygians.
Yeah, and it has an easy name to say.
Yes. Fantastic, yes.
So if you think this is not a Disneyland character, it's not.
No. It's a kind of an odd little, but that's what they picked. But it comes from the Revolution.
Yeah.
The bonnet phrygien is a nod to the French Revolution. Okay, nice. Okay.
So if that's the history on the weird little red thing, that's the mascot.
Yes. I don't really have anything to say about that. I don't think Olympic mascots do much for me most time.
If you want Olympic merchandise, I would recommend, when you're here, getting it from Decathlon, or you could order it online from them maybe when you're here too. I don't know. But they have the best prices. They're a lot less than a lot of the official Olympic stores where you can pay 80 euros for a t-shirt. You can get one at Decathlon for 20, which is still slightly overpriced for a t-shirt, but much more reasonable.
All right, we better call it good. Thank you so much for this update. This has been very enlightening. I hope people who listen to this just understand that the Olympics is going to create a lot of difficult situations. I'm not saying you should go to Paris during the Olympics, but you should be prepared for things being different than normal.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy good and crazy bad in different ways. So,
merci beaucoup, Patricia.
Au revoir. Ciao.
Au revoir. Again, I want to thank my patrons for giving back and supporting this show. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing that. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. That's Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. Thank you all for supporting this show. Some of you have been doing it for many years. You are wonderful. And a shout out this week to new patrons, Ellen Snoyenbos, Katie and Lori Bogie, Vera Lapano, and Lori. Wonderful to have you on board in the community of Francophiles who keep this podcast going. To join them, go to patreon.com/join us. And to support Elise, go to patreon.com/EliseArt, ELYSART. tea. And when you do, please don't click on the join for free thingy, because if you do, it won't help you or me. Instead, choose your membership level. For $5 a month or $50 per year, you get a monthly Zoom, extra French history content, the occasional French recipe, a monthly casual convo between Elise and I, etc. I'm always adding stuff that I find interesting, and I make them for my patrons. Join for free gets you nothing. And it gets me nothing either. So don't do it, please. This week I published my monthly casual convo with Elise, and I'll share photos of my new kitchen in Spain as well. It's not quite finished, and it's not worthy of the architectural digest, but hey, I've been talking about this for a few months. Patrons will get to see what it looks like. If you're planning a trip to France and have questions that didn't get answered in an episode of the podcast, you can hire me to be your itinerary consultant. I offer 2 levels of itinerary consultations: the Bonjour service, where I answer all your questions and share my tips and, guide you in the right direction, and the VIP, where I also answer your questions, share my tips, put you in the right direction. But in the end, you get a day-by-day recommendation, and it's all in writing. If you don't need a one-on-one consultation, it's just fine. You can still take me in your pocket with my self-guided GPS tours on the Voice Map app. And for most people, that's all they need. Go to one neighborhood of Paris for the whole day, walk my tour, stop at the churches, the restaurants, the museum that I recommend, and you'll have a fantastic time. Voice Map tours are an amazing value for the price. They work all the time, Olympics or no Olympics, strike or no strike, day or night, although it is better to take them when things are open. You can get one tour for 2 people, use 1 earbud each, and you're good to go. I will say that they're a bit too serious for children under 12, I think. But the parents can listen, lead the way like they know parrots, like it's the back of their hands, because I'm in their ear telling them what to do and where to go, and tell the kids whatever that you know will catch their interest. As always, to get any of my tours or services, visit joinusinfrance.com and go to the boutique tab or do /boutique. Let's do a quick personal update. I had to take an unscheduled trip to my apartment in Spain this week. On Monday, I got a message from the countertop company asking if they could do the install on Wednesday. I said, all right, but I'll be making the drive just for you, and I have to be home on Friday, so don't change your mind. She assured me that Wednesday was solid. So, before I went to bed, I asked for one more reassuring, explaining again that it's a long drive, it's a long way to go. I went to bed Monday night thinking there's no way they're going to give me a firm commitment because it's a construction company. They don't do that, Tuesday morning, I wake up and I read a detailed message from the countertop company that convinced me that they were serious. So I'm in Spain today. And they showed up and the countertop looks great. There's always little details to finish, I wonder if I'll ever think it's completely finished. But there's major things like, faucet and things like that. There are folks who worry about having an electric car and they think, oh, what if I need to take off in a hurry? Well, I woke up Tuesday morning, decided to make the 300-mile drive, and I was at 77% state of charge, which gives me more or less 150 miles at freeway speeds with my car. And then when I got to the Toulouse belt route, I saw on the overhead panels, which you should always pay attention to, that they had blocked off the freeway in the direction of Barcelona after Narbonne. So I found the freeway radio station, and the announcer explained that Spanish farmers were blocking the freeway between the French border and Barcelona, and that no cars were allowed through. Trucks could get through knowing that they'd be blocked for hours, perhaps days. And actually, they haven't lifted. It's been several days. They haven't lifted it yet. So I feel for the truckers if they are stuck in this mess. But they didn't want to take chances with families traveling, getting stuck like that. So they just closed it off to cars, which is a good way to handle things. Now, I was planning to drive along the coast between Toulouse and Barcelona, and then go a little further south than Barcelona. I didn't want to take the mountain pass to avoid frozen roads and snow and things. But since they had closed the freeway, that wasn't an option anymore, so I checked the weather. It said some snow right at the border, but it didn't look too bad. And I lived in Utah for 16 years. A little snow doesn't scare me that much. So I changed my route to go over the mountain. I stopped 90 minutes later at a Ionity charging station located at a Super U grocery store. We have a lot of charging stations at grocery stores in France, just like we have a lot of gas stations, honestly. I got some breakfast and snacks while the car charged. 2 hours later, I stopped again at another Ionity station that just opened by the Túnel del Cadí in Spain. That's a nice long tunnel that saves you a lot of mountain driving. And I had some lunch there. And by the way, there was quite a bit of snow falling when I entered a tunnel before the Túnel del Cadí. It's called the Puy-Morins tunnels. On that side, on the French side, it was a lot of snow and it was sticking and all of that. When I exited on the other side of the tunnel, there was hardly any snow. The Spanish side gets all the sun and the good weather. It was like a miracle. The point I'm trying to make is when the charging infrastructure is as good as it is in France and in other European countries, we don't have to worry about charging to the max the night before a trip. You can just stay at your normal level of charge. And if you have to go somewhere, get some breakfast on the way and you're fine. It's really not all that different from petroleum cars that I've driven, but it does take a little bit longer than gassing up, But I don't care about that, honestly. I've gotten used to the longer stops and it's just fine. All right, the magazine part of the podcast, let's talk about the Navigo and the transportation prices in Paris. People take 6 million trips on the Paris metro and the bus system each month. With the Olympics, it'll go up to 10 million. That's not quite twice as much, but it's a lot more. So they are improving the infrastructure. They are adding buses and metros, and I think they're adding a tram as well. And of course, this is all going to cost a lot of money, and visitors will pay for most of that. How? Well, you won't be able to buy the weekly or daily passes on the Paris metro between July 20th and September 8th. They will not sell Navigo Découverte during that time, and you will not be able to buy... Now, people who reside in Paris will be able to buy the monthly pass with their Android phone, but they won't sell the daily or weekly passes, even if you have the card, okay? It's not about the card, it's about selling you the pass. The weekly and the daily will not be on sale. That will force visitors to buy the higher priced tickets, and they'll cost €4 a piece. Now, if you have a Navigo Easy card, that's the card that you can recharge with however many number of T tickets that you would like, and you are in Paris before July 20th, you can get up to 30 tickets at the regular price per card. And that's a lot more than enough for most people like me. So I'll be in Paris in next week. I'll just load up my cards and then I'll get them at the lower price and they'll work the same they've always worked. But if you're just coming for the Olympics, you'll have to buy the T tickets at a higher price. Or you could get a ticket from a specific place to another specific place where the price will vary depending on how far you go. So if you're in Paris before July 20th, get a Navigo Easy card and buy as many tickets as you think you'll need through the Olympics. That way you get the normal price. I have been telling people to go with the Navigo Easy cards for a long time. The Navigo Découverte is fine. If you've done it before and you like it, that's fine. But I find Navigo Easy to be plenty cheap for most people. For people who are just there during the Olympics, the tickets will double in price. So right now, we pay about €2 for a ticket. It'll be €4 at full Olympics price. But you know what? I think in London, you already pay £4 all the time for a single ticket. So, it seems like a good way to raise money for the metro system without impacting locals too much. And in the show notes, I'll link to an article in English about this and to the official page from the RATP, that's the Paris Metro people. That'll be in French for those of you who want to know all the details. My thanks to podcast editors Anne and Christian Codovan, who produce the transcripts and make the podcast sound good. Next week on the podcast, an episode about the Lot department with Elise. The Lot is a beautiful place. Rocamadour, le Gouffre de Padirac, what else? Saint-Cirque-la-Popie is there. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. It's in the southwest of France. I'm going to Paris for a couple of weeks, working on my new self-guided food tour of Paris on the Voice Map app. And so I'll publish an episode every Sunday, but there won't be personal updates until I return. Yeah? Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent, and copyright 2024 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.